Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday Night with Mike and my co-host Delaney. Spencer is here. Say hi, Delaney.
Hello.
We are in the middle of it's getting kind of cold. I think it's supposed to be windy
Mhm.
tomorrow. These wind advisories out here in Kearney. Are you guys getting that too?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, I think Old Man Winter is not done yet. He is grumpy and ready to pounce. So hopefully it won't be too bad. Well, I'm apologizing to you guys. We are late with the putting this on the website because I was gone all weekend. I was in Pittsburgh with my son. We watched the Bruins play the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I had a good weekend because the Bruins won. My son's a Penguins fan, so he get to see his hero Sidney Crosby. So that was good. But so yeah, that's why we're late. So sorry about that. Well, listen, here we are. We want to talk about parents. I wrote a book for parents called Talking to Brick Walls, and it's basically a breakdown on why communication gets difficult. And one of my things is like my heart goes out to teenagers sometimes because I think a lot of that communication gap gets blamed on teenagers. Like they won't open up, they won't talk. And I don't think it's entirely, in fact, I don't think really it's teenagers' fault at all. I think most of that communication gap is the parents' fault. And we're going to talk that through a little bit before, we get into the end of this. We're kind of going to unpack that. But Delaney, what's your thoughts on communication as far as why is it hard for a teenager to talk to their parents?
I think, first of all, the obvious age gap and the authority that they have over you. So, talking with any adult as a teenager is going to be different than talking to your friends. But then you have the level of authority, too, that your parents have over you. Like, they have the right to punish you, they have the right to take things away. Like, they raised you and they have that authority over you. So, it's just an added fear almost. Like, a lot of parents will say, "You can tell me anything, I won't get mad, like, you just need to tell me." But they have a habit of sometimes going back on those words, and you just get a fear of what could happen if you do open up. Judgment, punishment, anything. So, I think just the fear of the authority they have over you definitely prevents teenagers from talking to their parents.
Yeah, one of the things one of the ways I put it in the book is there's an emotional price tag for honesty, what you said. Like if I do tell them what's going on, and they even they'll say, well, you can tell me anything. There's going to be no repercussions. But what do you think the difference between an emotional consequence, an emotional price tag, and just like a regular consequence? Like if you get caught vaping or something like that, there's a consequence. They'll take your phone or whatever. There's some kind of physical consequence. But but there's an emotional consequence too. What do you think the difference is?
I think physical consequences usually, in my experience at least, are if you've done something wrong and you deserve to be punished for something. But emotional things, like if I can talk personally, with my trichotillomania, my hair pulling disorder, um, when I first kind of told my mom about that, she would get mad at me. And I don't want to like out her or anything, but it's just the difference in the generations. But she would get mad at me for doing it and tell me to just stop. And that's like an emotional thing. It's a mental disorder, which she didn't understand. But emotionally, her telling me to just stop when all I wanted to do was just stop, like, bothered me more emotionally than I think any physical punishment could have. Like, if I snuck out and she took my phone away. Like, it's just on a different level, in my opinion. Emotionally, it's just worse because there's nothing you want more than to be heard and understood. And if your parents can't do that for you, it just takes a toll on you.
Yeah, it's like they sometimes get frustrated because they want to, you know, they want you to be safe. They want you to be okay. They want everything to be all right. And so when you tell them something like that, or you confess a weakness, or you confess something you did wrong, that emotional price tag, like I'm disappointed in you, or I don't, I'm judging you, or that kind of thing. That's where I think teenagers shut down because they don't want that judgment. They don't want to feel like, the information I just told you, you're going to turn around and weaponize that against me. So I'd rather just be quiet. And then parents interpret that as disrespect because you're not telling me something. You're not telling me what's really going on. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What do you think when, if I was talking to a parent right now and I said, your child wants to talk to you, on the tagline on the book, the cover of my book called Talking to Brick Walls for Parents, the tagline is your teenager wants to talk to you. I 100% believe that. I really do believe that teenagers really want to open up to their parents. If I had, $1 for every time a kid told me, like after they told me some crazy stuff about their life, they would say, a lot of them say to me, I wish I could tell my parents what I just told you. And I say, why don't you? And they say, oh, they'd hate me now, or that kind of thing. What do you think about that?
I think that's true. A lot of parents don't understand mine too. I mean, they watch this, but I think this is good to open up about. Um, they think that you're just shutting them out and they just don't want to talk. Like you just don't want to talk to them. But like you said, there's that fear of judgment. And like you said at the beginning, like I said at the beginning, they can say that they're not going to judge you, that they're not going to be mad at you. But until they take the action of actually showing that support without judgment, support without anger, it's going to be hard to open up. Like there has to be actions with your words. And that's something that a lot of parents, I think, struggle with. Like they want their kids to talk to them, so they say things. But then when their kids do talk to them, they don't act on their words. So then their kids just shut down.
Right. And that shutdown usually gets blamed on the kid, right? On the student, right? It's like, you don't, you're being disrespectful. And there's a lot of emotions that come for a parent when a teenager shuts them out, right? It's like guilt. There's some guilt, like, did I do something wrong? None of us parents are perfect, right? So it's like, you start playing those tapes in your head, like maybe I did something wrong. You feel sad too, because it's kind of like, you know, these are not the expectations you had. Like you wanted to have this parent child relationship to be friendship and be good, and then it's not. And so it's weird. I think there's also fear, like, you know, what don't I know? What there may be some things that they're dealing with, depression or, suicide ideation, they're not telling me. And so that's a fear too, right? Or they're, getting involved with things that could potentially harm them, substance abuse, relationship stuff. There's things like that. So there's fear, right? There's a lot of emotions that come to parents. That's why I think that a lot of them do bring emotional consequence, because they're just scared. Like they overreact sometimes, instead of going into that mode of trying to, just be cool about that information and get that information. One of the things I tell parents all the time is, you have to switch your parent when they turn 13. You've got to be, and I want to get your opinion on this. You want to be able to be less of the CEO and more of a consultant. Like when you're a CEO, you go, this is what you do it. When you're a consultant, and I've been both, right? You have to say, hey, I have an idea. Let me run this by you, see what you think. And you kind of get more of a communication thing going, where you're kind of bouncing things off each other. And that's weird for a parent, because when you were 8, they were like, go to your room, and you'd go. And now they say, go to your room. You're like, no, I don't think so. I mean, there's that consultant versus CEO. What do you think of that?
I think when you're younger, your parents are raising you to be the best person you can be. But like you said, when you turn 13, when you're a teenager, you're getting into the years of life when you are starting to think for yourself. You're starting to do your own things. You have your own interests. You have your own mindset on how life is. And at that point, I just don't think it's really possible for parents to maintain a healthy relationship with their kids if they're just being the CEO, like you said. Like if they're just still acting how they did when their kids were younger, because they've changed. Their minds are growing. They're learning more things about the world. And you want to keep them safe as parents. I mean, obviously I'm not a parent, but you want to keep your kids safe. That's all you want to do. You want to protect them, help them live the best life that they can, but you have to let them experience things. You have to let them make their own decisions, even if they may be bad. Not harmful, but maybe bad decisions, to learn from themselves and to trust you with those decisions. Like if they do something bad, they can trust you enough to tell you what they've done because they know that you're not going to judge them or punish them like they would if you were young.
Yeah, that's hard for a parent. That really is. It's a lot easier to be the CEO. It just, it just is because you say this, they do this, and that's the end of it. But when your kid talks back to you or says, "Hey, I have a different idea. I have a different, mindset," that really shocks them. And I don't think parents are really understanding totally of why that happens. With social media now and with the exposure to the whole world when you turn 13, 14, that social world is completely different than it was when I turned 13, right? Because my social world consisted of who was in front of me, right? It was my friends, their families, my relatives, but mostly, at school, my social world was relegated to classrooms and hallways and whoever was in front of me. That's not the way it is now. I mean, for you guys, you could be talking to Denver, you could be talking to New York, you could be talking to people all around the country because your world is TikTok and it's Instagram and it's gaming and you're connected to all these people. That's tough for parents because the worldview now is more plural. It's opened, right, to all these different, concepts and different variables that are coming in through different channels and different platforms. And so that's weird for a parent, I think. And but it does open you up and it gives you more options. And what do you think of that?
I think that it makes sense. Like for parents, their job is hard, especially because they were raised differently. So they are also learning how to navigate not only the world today themselves, but also navigating it for their kids and learning what's safe and what's not safe and learning how to raise their kids in this new world where you have access to social media and new technologies. And I I think it's really hard for parents to do that. But I think taking the time to talk with your kids about that. I think social media is a great thing because you have access to so many things that you didn't before, and they teach you so many things about the world, and that's great. But it's also a bad thing, and that's where your parents come in. Like, they need to learn how to raise you according to today's standards, if that makes sense.
No, it's totally makes sense. And that's really hard to say to a parent, right?
Yeah.
Because they're like, what? But I think I've noticed this in life that when people don't understand something, they do one of two things. They either try to understand it more, which is what you're saying, or they attack it. And I think that what I've seen with adults generally, with teenagers, especially Gen Z, is they attack. I mean, I've said this in assemblies that I really do think that this is the most attacked and misunderstood generation of teenagers I've been involved with, and I've been doing this for over 3 decades, and so I've never seen it like this. But I think it has to do with that. Is like adults are frustrated, like they're on the phones all the time. They're you know they're connected to this world. They're hidden in plain sight, like their lives. They're right in front of me. They're 2 feet in front of me, but they're somewhere else. And because they're on their phones and they're thinking about that world. If they're not on their phone, they're thinking about what's on their phone, and it's a disconnect that parents really get frustrated with. And I think your words are wise. I think, and I've said this on my parent nights when I do parent nights at schools, is you really have to understand that world. You can't put this on autoplay. You can't just go, oh, it'll work itself out. No, you really have to understand what this world is like for your teenager. What do you think of that?
I agree. I mean, and it's hard to see, like you said, if a kid is on their phone right in front of you, you think that they're maybe being disrespectful, maybe ignoring you, maybe that's shown as a sign of laziness. But if you look at it from their perspective, they're seeing all of these things, like something I like to do. Like, I can't be in Europe right now, I can't be on the beach, but I can go on TikTok and find videos of beach days, and that makes me happy. It's like a serotonin booster. And I think parents think that social media and the internet is all just bad and it leads to poor work ethic, poor communication skills. But I think honestly, it increases those things. And that's a controversial opinion. But when you see what others can do with their lives, it makes you want to improve yours more. And if parents can understand that aspect of social media and that aspect of their kids on social media, then it'll really help them and when their communication with their kids.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think that just putting effort into that, getting that information, and put it like basically walking in your child's shoes. Like, just that's what I tell parents all the time. Just what is it like to be them? And I don't think that parents understand also the consequence that comes your way if you don't at least like stay on top of that stuff in your social world. Because if you're not looking at that stuff, the kids in school are, and the people that you run with are. And so if you're left out of that, they're talking about something that's trending on TikTok and you don't know about it, there is a social consequence for that. There is. I mean, there definitely is. And that, whether you even believe in the values that are being pushed out on TikTok, let's say a specific thing is being pushed out on TikTok and maybe it's a little shady, if even if you don't like it, you have to pretend at least to like it or pretend to know about it, because if you don't and you're left out, there's a social consequence. Talk about social consequences for not being up on that kind of stuff for a teenager. What's that like?
Um, First of all, you feel left out because, I mean, before I had like any real form of social media, all my friends were talking about like trending TikTok dances and all of this, and I would kind of just sit there and watch them do it because I didn't have TikTok at the time. And it just obviously makes you feel left out. You're watching your friends have fun doing something that they're enjoying, but you don't know what it is, so you can't do it with them. So you're lonely and you feel left out. But then there's also the aspect of, especially getting older, politics, religion, everything that's happening in the world. If you don't know about something that's happening in the world, you're almost shunned or seen as not up to date. You're seen as someone who doesn't care in a way. And I think that that's wrong because there's some people that just like to live private lives. They don't want to know about things they want to keep to themselves. And they shouldn't be seen as someone who doesn't care just because they don't know about wars that are happening. And I mean, I like to know about that stuff, but you can't judge someone based off of what they know from the internet and what they don't know from the internet because you never know their opinion on it.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. And that's what I want to help parents with, is understanding that it's not an affront on your values if they are getting into some of these, worldly things. It's there's a lot going on there, because if you don't at least pretend to be up on that stuff, there is a social consequence to pay. Just like there's a consequence to pay if you don't make your bed or whatever the rules are in your home. If there's a consequence for that, there's a consequence on the other side. And so to me, young people are balancing those two. I call them governments because I think it's like that. It's like there's a government of parent, the adults in my life that need. I'm a teenager now, and I need my parents to be happy with me, and my teachers and everybody to be happy with me. And then there's my social world. I need them to be happy. And there's that balancing act of trying to, obey those two worlds. And I think that gets really hard sometimes to make both happy. What do you think of that?
I agree with that. I mean, I think when you're younger and being brought up, the government of your parents and other authority figures is the most important thing because you have friends when you're younger, but if your friends say to jump off a swing set and you know you're going to break your leg, but you want to do it anyway, like that's where parents come in handy. But as you're a young adult, a teenager going into adulthood, going out into the world, it's almost like the social government becomes almost more important. Your parents are still very important because they're guiding you, but this is the world that you're going to be living in. Like, it's not the same generation as they had. It's not even the same as when you were younger and they were preparing you for the world. Like, your social government is what it's going to be for the rest of your life. That's what you're going to grow up in. That's what it's going to be when you go out into life. So you need to have that balance. Like you said, your parents need to be able to protect you and raise you, but you also need to be influenced by things that are going on because that's your world. This is your generation. This is what you're living in.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, that's a very wise way to put it because that is going to be your world now. And when I was raising kids, I wish I could have put my kids in my world, right? Because it's a safe place. It's where I want them to be. But as they've gotten older, I just spent the weekend with my son. He's 30, and he has different ideas about politics and different ideas about different things than I do, and that's fine. But what's fun about it is now I'm in a place where he's my friend, and I have friends that don't agree with me on certain things, right? I have good friends that are, different politically than I am, and different, worldviews than I have, but they're good friends. I really enjoy them as people, and I can do that with my kids. Like I have to be able to just. They can't all be in my little world, and that's what I think parents need to make that adjustment to be able to let them do that. Do you have anything closing that you want to say about this?
No, I mean, that's exactly what I was thinking actually at the beginning when you told me what we were talking about. You always hear the phrase that parents aren't supposed to be your best friends, teachers aren't supposed to be your best friends. And I agree with that, but at the same time, as you're getting older, you want your parents to be your friends. And as a parent, you should want your kids to be your friends because you're with them for the rest of your life, for the rest of their lives. And you want to have that connection. And if you want your kid to open up to you, if you want to have a deeper connection with your child, then you need to be their friend because they're a young adult too. And they're seeing the world how it is instead of just how it was when they were younger. So just exactly what you said. Just be friendly with your kids and try to understand them and the world that they're living in.
Right. The way I put it is I tell parents, no, you want to be your kid's friend. You don't want to be their buddy. Their buddy's different. A buddy lets you do anything. A buddy will let you jump off like the swing set, right? A buddy's like, hey, try this. Or in a parent context, a buddy is, oh, no consequences. We'll just kind of hang out. You do whatever you want. No, sometimes parents have to bring consequences, but you can still be a friend. In fact, there's a Bible verse that I really like. It says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but deceitful are the kisses of an enemy. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Sometimes you have to wound your friend, not obviously not physically, but like you have to say some things that are tough. You got to be, you're going to be in their face a little bit about some life choices they're making. That's a friend. So parents, you're not, by being that your child's friend doesn't mean you're giving up that ability to be able to speak truth to them when it's tough. I think it's on the contrary. I think when you've paid the dues and you're really a friend, you can say some things that are tough. What it comes down to is if you're anybody in your life, if they know you really love them and care about them and you say some tough things to them, they can take it more when they know that foundation or that motive is that you love me and that you care about me. And so, yeah, be their friend for sure. So that's good. Wait, man, Delaney, we're just kicking butt here. It's been good.
All right.
Love having you. I do. I really do. You're doing great. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Me and the Deester. I'm going to call her name. So
Sure.
we will be back. So tell your friends, tell your dog, tell everybody about Monday Night with Mike and Delaney.
And Delaney.
Okay. See you later, guys.
Bye.